I think when we start the offseason and we look at the biggest moves that are made within the NFL, it usually has everyone staring at the big picture, which is the players and the offseason moves, the acquisition, who stays, who goes, and then the draft, which clearly, I mean, those are two of the biggest movers of a needle for a team. You have to have new players. You have players leaving every single season. But I believe there is a bigger move at play here that happened this offseason, and one that I want to highlight tonight that I feel is very important for this team moving forward and the success of this team in 2024 and beyond. When the NFL season ends and a new one begins, there's a lot of moves that are happening within every single team and franchise or organization and outside. You know, there's a lot of players that are moving from this team to that team. And during free agency, things kind of get wild with resetting the bar and trying to rebuild your team for the next season. And those are the biggest moves that I believe that everybody is paying attention to, is the players. But I want to highlight some moves that I feel have been much bigger this offseason for the Detroit Lions and what it's going to spell for their success in 2024. Now, I don't think it's any surprise. I think everyone understands and they know that extending Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes and matching up those contracts to keep them in Detroit through 2027 was a very big move. One, it keeps the coach together with the GM for the same length of time. Two, they speak to continuity and making sure that all aspects of this franchise have it. And what a better place to start with than at the top. That's a big move, but that's not the move that I'm talking about here. There's something that is even bigger than this, in my opinion. And that was bringing back Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, but not just those two, David Phipp. Having all three coordinators back on your team, now entering the fourth season together, is paramount to any other move that has ever been made. Now, Dan Campbell was being interviewed. I can't remember exactly where it was, but I do have the tape of it. And he spoke to, now that he has all of his guys back, which he was obviously not thinking it was going to happen, the one thing that he said that was really important to him is that these guys don't even have to ask anymore. They know exactly what he wants and exactly how to get it done. That's the level of chemistry that you need to run a very successful franchise and to have a very successful football team on the field. Now, speaking of Ben Johnson's first season as the full-time offensive coordinator in 2022, the Lions offense finished third in the NFL with 6,460 yards, 4,281 of those yards by way of passing, 2,170 yards on the ground. Fourth in touchdowns scored with 54, fourth in total first downs, 376, and first in fewest turnovers with only 15. It was the first time in franchise history that the Lions passed for more than 4,000 yards and rushed for more than 2,000 yards in a single season. That was kind of hard for me to believe. With all of the years, you know, all the seasons with Barry Sanders toting the rock, you would have felt like we could have gotten there, you know, any season. And we did. I mean, even one year he broke 2,000 by himself. We still couldn't pass for 4,000 yards. So that's a pretty darn good reason to believe that this offense is doing great things, not only with Ben Johnson, but Jared Goff. But Ben knew this was coming. And in February of 2022, he was quoted, I think it was February of 2022, he was quoted that, this is what he said, "I think the most encouraging thing is where we can get to because we'll make a huge jump here between year one and year two in this offense as we clean up all the details. There will be less thinking and more reacting. The conversations we are having as a coaching staff are like calculus as compared to the pre-algebra we were doing a year ago at this time." Now, the reason why he used a math analogy there is because Ben Johnson was a math major in college. So it just, I guess, comes naturally to him, which it also kind of speaks volumes to Ben Johnson's brain and the way that he thinks. You know, if he's a numbers guy, you know, he thinks quickly, he reacts quickly, and being able to, you know, calculate everything so quickly and in his head, I think explains as to why he has a lot of success. He just has a very quick reactionary way of thinking about things and executing. So he went on, you know, 4, 5, 6 interviews or whatever it was in 2023's offseason or 2022's offseason into 2023. And there was some very key reasons as to why he came back. And he was quoted as saying this: "It's really simple for me. It starts with this place and these people. Been here 4 years now, and I believe in Sheila Ham and what she's doing. I believe in Rod Wood, Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes. It starts at the top and trickles down. This is as encouraged as I've been in my 4 years with the direction of the Lions and where we are headed." He went on to say this. I was thinking at the time and soaking in the atmosphere. This is when he came to Detroit. I can't remember exactly when, but it was in his early stages of coming to Detroit. He went to a concert. I think it was a Garth Brooks concert. So anyway, he had this to say. I was thinking at the time and soaking in the atmosphere, and it was like, holy cow, this is what a home playoff game is going to be like. And this is what I want to be part of. This is what I want to feel. This is what I want to experience. It made me feel some type of way. And I kept going back to that as part of the process. And you know what? There are so many good things going on here. So many good people, coaches, players. I love the offensive staff and everyone we have on board there. I love the players. I love coming into work every day. Coach Campbell is incredible. And so, end of the day, talking with my family, it just made sense. Don't ruin a good thing. Man, it's pretty powerful stuff. But it got even more powerful, didn't it? Because he expected what was going to happen in 2022. Being able to build with the guys and continue to build upon what they've already laid as a foundation. So then 2023 happens. Again, led by offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. There was zero slowing down this offense in 2023. But what I found interesting was his approach to the offense. And most notably, number 16, Jared Goff. And he had this to say about the position and how he coaches and how they went about, fixing some things or changing some things or implementing, what they're trying to succeed with. He said, I've seen guys come in and they plop down a playbook and they try to change the quarterback. And there's a degree of growing the quarterback and challenging the quarterback. But I think it still starts with what that quarterback does best. So that was always our starting point. A couple of years ago with Jared, what does he do best? And what we've looked, and then we've looked to grow and develop him from there. And so it's been very much a hand-in-hand, step-in-step process. So what I'm gathering from this is that he didn't come in to try to fix Jared or change Jared. He wanted to get the best out of Jared. Someone on the podcast the other night said it best that, you've got guys that can, get a lot out of somebody more than what that person has been able to give before. And that takes a certain level of not only a coach or a leader or a teacher, but a personality and a human approach to this. And then you have others that maybe only able to get 70, 80% out of that same individual because they don't approach it the right way. And that was Matthew Slatiziak the other night, Sunday night, that spoke to that. And that's what I see here. Ben Johnson was able to come in and find what he does best on the field, Jared Goff, and then use that as motivation and a way to build an offense. The scheme, the plays, the players, everything that they do is then built around what Jared Goff does best. Super smart. So to finish 2023, an amazing season. The Detroit Lions offense finished third overall again, 2 seasons in a row, with 6,712 total offensive yards, almost 300 more than the previous season. Finished fourth in passing yards, 4,606. Second in passing yards per game, 258.9. Fifth in rushing yards, 2,311, averaging 135.9 yards per game. And third in total touchdowns, 58. And fifth in points, 27.1 per game. Incredible season, man. But to say that Johnson has worked wonders for Jared Goff and the Lions offense would be a massive understatement, in my opinion. See, since Johnson took over as coordinator, Goff has had incredible, how do I put it? He's seen his numbers really skyrocket, just an insane amount of leveling up, if you will. But before Johnson's arrival, Goff appeared to be on the decline to many around the league. And he was sent to Detroit, to kill his career, right? That's what everyone thought, that you go to Detroit to watch your careers die. And that Jared Goff was no different. Sean McVay cast him away. He was a nobody, no good. Couldn't win with him, couldn't win without him kind of deal, right? At least in McVay's eyes, you couldn't win with him no matter what. Boy, was he wrong. The Rams winning the Super Bowl, though, the year, after trading Goff away, I think only perpetuated that narrative a little bit more. It really kind of gave the side eye to Jared Goff, like, how come they did it without you in year one? Well, you got to look at all of the circumstances. The team that they built in LA around Stafford and actually having a defense was a big reason why. But you fast forward to the present day, and things have really taken on really a 180 with Jared Goff. This was arguably the best 2-year stretch of his career, his entire career, to be honest with you, and led the Lions to multiple playoff wins for the first time since 1957. Goff conquered his former team In the wild card round, dispatching the Rams 24-23 in a very memorable game that I was at. He piloted the team to a win over Tampa Bay in the divisional round, 287 passing yards and 2 scores in that game. And then the Lions were on the brink of a Super Bowl in the NFC title game, getting out to a massive lead, hanging up points left and right. He posted his highest total in passing yards since 2019 and came up just 2 TDs short of his personal best season in passing touchdowns. It's not just, Goff, though, either. He's been a very important part of this. In this story, even though I'm talking about a lot of different players and elements that have gone on the last couple of seasons, this is really about Ben Johnson and how the biggest move was bringing Ben Johnson back, not just last year, but being able to hang on to him again this year. And the moral of the story we'll get to in the end and why this is so important. But you also have wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown. Brown was named first team All-Pro for the first time in his career, in his 3rd season. You had running back David Montgomery, who rushed north of 1,000 yards and 13 touchdowns. Best season of his career. Running back JAHMYR GIBBS and tight end Sam LAPORTA, both rookies, made the Pro Bowl. Insane careers. In their first year. I should say insane season in their first year of their career. The offensive line was put in positions to win regularly, even though that they were changing positions like they were changing underwear, it seemed like, constantly going through players. And the Lions averaged nearly 29 points per game in the playoffs, up against some of the best teams that you're going to face all season long. And they hung up 31 on San Francisco, a defense that only allowed 17.5 points per game the entire regular season. We just came up short. Also last season, we also came up short narrowly with having 2 1,000-yard rushers in the same season. GIBBS finished just 55 yards short of that achievement. Montgomery finished with 1,015 yards, obviously narrowly making the mark. Had both players not missed a couple of games during the season, they would have smashed it. No problem. They would have each had 1,000, and it would have been just yet another franchise record for the Detroit Lions. I can't even count how many franchise records they've smashed in the last 2 years. It's been a lot. And I think that they would have been labeled as the best running back duo in the league last year. I still think they are. And that's just not my bias. I truly believe it. And I believe they'll be the best running back duo in 2024. Now, in Amon-Ra St. Brown's 3rd season, he proved his case to be considered amongst the league's best. He surpassed 1,500 receiving yards. He had his first double-digit receiving touchdown campaign. Jameson Williams, on the other hand, kind of began his season with a little bit of turbulence. Gambling suspension. Obviously, it sidelined him for 5 weeks, what ended up being 5 weeks. So, he had a limited capacity, if you will, in 2023. He didn't do a whole lot. He showed flashes of his elite potential at times, but he didn't really become that integral part of the offense until later on in the year. Williams finished the regular season with 24 catches, 354 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And at this point, obviously, we know that he needs to at least double that in 2024. But then you got guys like Penei Sewell, who emerged as one of the league's best tackles, has been since he's been in the league, earning the highest Pro Football Focus offensive grade amongst players at the position. He allowed just 1 sack and showed off his athleticism on numerous blocks, numerous plays, up, down, all over the field. The guy is insanely good. And then at the guard position, you had an oldie but a goodie comeback, Graham Glasgow. Man, was he a revelation for the offensive line. Played 3 different positions. And after being beaten out by Vaitai in training camp to start the season, Graham Glasgow ended up emerging as the starter when Vaitai suffered yet again another injury in week 2. He earned the starting right guard spot. Like I said, he played center, he played left guard, had obviously the best season he's, in my opinion, ever had as a pro. Was the highest rated guard on the team. Heads and shoulders above a $51 million man in Jonah Jackson. Now, to get to the moral of this story and why the biggest move didn't happen with the players that we brought in. The biggest move is not what is about to happen in the draft. The biggest move is that far too often teams fall apart because of all the change and fluctuation in staff from year to year. That really compounds the issue of the player fluctuation from year to year, season to season. And Dan Campbell noted in his final media session at the end of 2024 that consistency was the key to maintaining success and not falling off the map too quickly. The highs of the highs of 2023 could be the lows of the lows in 2024 if you don't maintain some consistency. Which obviously what he's speaking to here is having your coaches back, if at all possible, for another season. The Lions have been a team that has consistently changed coaches. Every 3 seasons, 2.5 seasons, 4 seasons. I think we had one coach that had 5 in the last 30 years. Dan Campbell is now entering his 4th season. It's already a huge win for this team to have this much consistency. But it's not just Dan Campbell. It's Aaron Glenn, Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, honorable mentions Mark Brunell, offensive line coach Hank Fraley. These are the key pieces, the biggest moves of the offseason. Dan Campbell had this to say in an interview. He said, "You've got to stay consistent, which we've done for 3 years now. Stay true to what you believe in. When it comes time to start over, you start over. And it's all about, like what I said, the hard work, the detail. We've got to be physical." He also went on to say that that's part of who we are. But if you start to deviate off of what you've been, and I think the other thing you've got to be careful, you fall in a trap with, the more success you have with these players, the more attached you get. You've got to be careful you don't get blinded, and that's hard. That's hard to do. You've got to see it for what it is. Step back and make sure the player is producing and is capable of producing at a high level, and take your emotions out of it. This has got to be really, really, really hard to do. And we know this. You get attached to things in life, it's hard to let go. And for Dan Campbell, we know how emotional he is and how much he cares about these players. As a former player himself, he's been through this multiple times. Dan Campbell was quite honestly shocked that Ben Johnson and AG were coming back. He was quoted at the Combine in 2024 about this very thing. And he said this. He said, "This is the 2nd year in a row that I didn't think I was going to be able to have them back, between Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn and some of the other coaches. And it worked out. So we're fortunate. And I just think you're so much further along with what you do, and you've evolved so much over a 3-year period when you're all together." Now, I'm not going to go too far in depth with Aaron Glenn, but I do believe that, by him being back is a huge benefit for this defense and this team. Yeah, he's had some questionable moments, and we've had some questionable defenses. There's been some pretty big blunders, most notably the NFC title game. But having yet another season with a lot of the same guys on defense will, or at least should, prove to be a game changer this year. No excuses, right? This is the year that Aaron Glenn puts it together. And at a minimum, I think that, Glenn's return aside, will give the Lions, a new look defensively this season. Why? Well, they fired defensive line coach John Scott and defensive backs coach Brian Duker and Dre Bly, and senior defensive assistant John Fox. But then they added and upgraded Terrell Williams as defensive line coach, defensive run game coordinator, Deshea Townsend as defensive backs coach and the defensive pass game coordinator, and Jim O'Neill as a defensive assistant. Dan Campbell called Williams, quote, "the best defensive line coach in the league." And then also said that Townsend will, quote, "deliver exactly what AG wants in the back end." He also touted Jim O'Neill's experience as a former NFL defensive coordinator. And he went on to say this: "Those guys are going to be good for us defensively, really help AG finish the vision on what we're looking for." So that's it, folks. In 2024, the biggest move has nothing to do with the players, but everything to do with the players. It's retaining your coaches, not just your head coach, but the rest of the coaching tree underneath you that is growing together, learning together, and understanding what everybody wants and what everybody asks for, and how to get it done together. I'm going to keep saying together because they're still together. All right, I'll stop now. But that's it. That's the biggest move. It's the biggest move that goes unnoticed every year. The teams that win, they somehow are able to keep their guys together. Whether it's the players, that they can keep in-house, which the Lions has done an excellent job at keeping their core foundation together and a few extras. But now the coaches, season number 4. Will it be the season that they finally put it all together? I'm hopeful. I think that they have the best opportunity right now. So when we think about what this team can do in 2024, I think the sky's the limit. It's going to be hard. It's a tough schedule, but we have the right personnel to do it.